The first YouTube video I ever made was on the future NBA superstar nobody's talking about. At that point, a second-year Jamal Murray. Murray's ride since then has been a roller coaster. He's at times been a non-factor, an inefficient scorer who could simply fade away on the wrong night. He's also had 50-point games in signature moments, and for a few weeks in the NBA bubble, was immortal. A lot of people said after that stretch in the bubble that he had taken the jump, that he had reached the superstar ceiling I predicted. Then through 23 games this year, he was averaging less points, rebounds, and assists per game than the previous regular season, before he even took the leap in the first place on worse percentages from the field, from three, and from the line. But as he does, Jamal has caught fire ever since. He's scored 20 plus points in 12 straight games and is averaging 28.5 points per game on better than 55, 47, 92 splits over that period. That's who he is. He's dazzling, yet prone to disappearance. He's a savant, but he's flawed. He's an enigma. And today, we're going to make sense of it and figure out what his value really is. So first, let's contextualize where, amidst all the hot and cold streaks, Jamal has come down as a scorer this year. Right now, he's averaging 21.8 points per game on 49% from the field, 40% from three, and 85% from the line, posting career highs in points per game, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage, and is doing so with some of the most jaw-dropping raw skill that there is in basketball. Murray is one of the league's premier pick-and-roll scorers. Without overwhelming quickness, he doesn't always excel in isolation, but give him a screen and the slight advantage that comes with it, and he becomes a maestro. When he's on, Murray plays with the calm pace and composure of a player who knows every shot he puts up will fall. With a crisp handle, he utilizes the mid-range as well as anybody in basketball, knocking down an absurd 53% of his shots from 10 to 16 feet and 45% of his 152 shots from the mid-range as a whole this season. He can come off screens and drift into a mid-range pull-up or a floater, which he's at 57% of this year, or he can step back and do damage with perhaps the most lethal tool in his bag, the step back. For a player lacking in elite athleticism, the step back is crucial in allowing Murray to consistently create disgustingly efficient offense, as he has made 65% of his step back attempts inside the arc and 42% from beyond it this year. He may not always be able to get by you, and you may be able to guard him well for 20 seconds, but he can still get away from you, and he is maybe the league's best off-balance shot maker. And hands in the face don't tend to bother him very much either. Murray also utilizes that off-balance shot making out of the post, where he ranks in the 74th percentile as a scorer this year. Although he doesn't utilize his post game often, at 6'4", Murray can sometimes move smaller guards and has ballerina-esque footwork there. Although he goes to his fadeaway the majority of the time, it's a beautiful and unguardable shot. Unsurprisingly, with his incredible skill as a difficult shot maker, Murray also has exceptional value in the clutch, something that he displayed time and again in last year's playoffs. This season, he's sustained that production, as he's currently among the league's top 10 clutch scorers, one spot below his teammate Nikola Jokic, and directly above Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Kyrie Irving, and he has done so on absurd efficiency at 49% from the field and 50% from deep. What is true for Murray is basically exactly what I said for his counterpart in Jokic. These dudes are all skill, so the shots they take that mere mortals would consider miracles are somewhat routine for them in the biggest moments when they're all you can get. Personally, I think Murray also just has a killer instinct that kicks into gear more in the biggest moments. And while that may be intangible, I do think there's a reason he's averaged 24 points per game in his playoff career and has significantly boosted his production both times he's been there. Additionally, although Murray is best with the ball in his hands, he does have some notable off-ball value. He can definitely get complacent there at times, but he's a savvy cutter and has value even just standing around as a 40+% shooter off the catch from deep. So given all of that, we're talking about a special player skill set wise, right? Yeah, but in spite of all this, Murray is again extremely hot and cold. This year he's been held to single-digit scoring 4 separate times. For reference, out of the NBA's top 30 qualified scorers, only 3 other players have even 2 such games, and no one else has 3, so Murray is in a class of his own. On the flip side of that, of course, he has 7 games with 30-plus points and is one of 6 players to have a 50-point game on the year. So why is Jamal so inconsistent? Well, the reason is pretty simple. He basically never gets the easy stuff. Jamal is an absurdly skilled finisher around the rim, having converted 72% of his attempts in the restricted area this season. In my opinion, his body control, contortionism, and ridiculous manipulation of the spin of the ball is rivaled only by Kyrie Irving in my lifetime, and I mean that. But Murray's lack of elite burst makes it difficult for him to get downhill consistently, and he doesn't have the same stop and start change of pace of some other elite scorers like a Harden, a Doncic, or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who also lack elite burst but make up for it there. His gifts are footwork and pure shot making, and that's great, but it doesn't get you the easy stuff. Murray takes just 12% of his shots from 0 to 3 feet, a ridiculously low number that shows just how reliant he really is on those difficult, off-balance jump shots that just can't fall every time. When those shots are off, Jamal is off. Period. Additionally, because of his lack of blazing quickness or overpowering strength, Jamal often finds himself facing big men who are in position and able to contest him cleanly. Again, Murray is a savant at adjusting midair to avoid those giants, and his contact aversion can lead to some of his signature circus shots, but it deprives him of the easiest points of basketball: free throws, which he takes just 3.5 of per game. Of 32 players who score as many points per game as Murray, that number ranks 31st and is barely half of other young guards like De'Aaron Fox or Gilgeous-Alexander, who only score about 1 more point per game. Without a steady diet of free throws, it's next to impossible to become a truly elite scorer, as only one player has ever topped 25 points per game on less than 4 free throws per night in a season: Calvin Murphy back in 1978. While Murray was able to kick up his scoring to 26.5 points per game in last year's playoffs on just 4.1 free throws a game, that was more of an indication that his absolutely ridiculous shooting was unsustainable than it was that he could do that over an entire season. Jamal's scoring is entrancing and hypnotic, but there's a reason the NBA's best guards play the threes, layups, and free throws game, because it's just the most efficient and reliable way to score. Jamal can't play that game, so while he does something every night that would wow even many of them, there are also crucial things they make look easy that if Jamal could do, would make him a true superstar. And that is the essential dilemma with Jamal Murray. Now, let me be clear, Jamal is a really good scorer and is a guy who I want on my team every time. I'm just explaining why one of the league's most absolutely skilled players is not also one of its absolutely most productive. Far and away the most interesting and complex part of Murray's game is his scoring, but let's take a look at his all-around value. One of the fascinating parts about Murray's bubble performance was that for the first time in his career, he bordered on brilliance as a playmaker occasionally, averaging 6.6 assists per game while firing flashy passes and making reads out of the pick and roll that we just hadn't seen from him previously. Murray's playmaking is an interesting thing to evaluate, because while he's listed as a point guard, he really isn't one playing alongside Jokic. His job is to get buckets, so he doesn't have to be a great playmaker, although it obviously always helps. Murray can make simple reads out of the pick and roll, can deliver a mean bounce pass, and loves to throw dimes one-handed with a real flair for the dramatic as a passer. But he can also be inaccurate with those attempts, leading to unnecessary turnovers, and can sometimes get locked into scoring and miss playmaking opportunities. All in all, he's a fine but not really impactful passer, and I think the ceiling that we saw untapped for a moment in the bubble has not been sustained this year. On the defensive end, Murray has certainly taken strides. He used to be an outright liability there, which is definitely no longer the case. He gives consistent effort when guarding on ball and has been tenacious closing out on shooters this year, holding opponents 7% below their average from beyond the arc. He has solid length with a 6'6" wingspan and takes some smart gambles, forcing deflections and steals. But the fact that NBA.com had him ranked 5th in their Defensive Player of the Year ladder at one point is just genuinely very funny. Murray has a very prominent tendency to ball watch or overhelp defensively and can be very lackadaisical off the ball, where he still has his fair share of lapses. Additionally, he still lacks exceptional physical tools and can get exposed by either uber quick or particularly strong guards. Much like his playmaking, Murray is a solid defender who doesn't have a tremendous impact on the game in either direction there. So as you would expect, his value comes down to his scoring. So this is what it comes down to. This is the essential question that follows Murray. Can he be the second guy for the Nuggets long term if they're going to win a title? Personally, when Jokic is his best guy, I think he can. Murray already has a brilliant playmaking engine and co-alpha scorer alongside him, but he brings constant value as a bucket getter that is only amplified in the playoffs. Would this require having all the right pieces alongside them and a much better crew than they have right now? Absolutely, although the Nuggets are better than their record suggests as they have a top 5 point differential in basketball, but I don't know how, given what we've seen from him at his best, we could say that he can't be the second best guy. Put the right crew of shooters and wing defenders around those two, and I believe. Too often we judge players on a binary scale. You won a title or you didn't, you pulled off X achievement or you didn't, and we let that define their career. We disregard context. Just because Murray hasn't done it doesn't mean that he can't. He gets better in the biggest moments, he's unstoppable once he gets going, and he has about as desirable of a foundational skill set as you could ask for. And at 24 years old with a transcendent superstar alongside him, I won't be the one to count it out. To me, that just wouldn't make sense. To those of you who have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've listened to the Nerd Sesh podcast for a while, then you know how much I love Jamal. It was only a matter of time before I made this video. I literally own a shirt that says, "This guy loves Jamal Murray." He is one of the most aesthetically pleasing basketball players I've ever seen. But I wanted to take it outside of those terms and look at what his real value is, so I hope that you enjoyed that analysis. If you want more like it, you can check out the rest of the stuff we have here on this YouTube channel. Logan just made a phenomenal video on Jalen Brunson, why he's the ultimate winning basketball player. My video before that was actually about the Mavs as well and why they are catching fire right now. You can check out our podcast where we do a sports history show Monday. We talk NBA Wednesdays and Saturdays, and we're trying to do the live show Wednesdays here on YouTube as much as we can. We won't next week, but hopefully the week after that and going forward. And for a bunch of short video content, podcast highlights, all that stuff, you can check us out on Twitter at nerd_sesh and on Instagram at Nerd Sesh. But other than that, guys, hope you've enjoyed.